This case is extremely brutal. It's absolutely the most intense, a real benchmark. The wife was bitten by the perpetrator and sexually assaulted for a full 8 hours. In order to survive, the husband did something before dying that you wouldn't even dare to imagine. After the crime, not only did the 4 perpetrators not flee the scene quickly, but they even swaggered around and cooked a dish of braised pork right at the crime scene. It was precisely this dish that gave the police a clue. To capture these 4 young men, the police deployed countless officers, real guns, and even nuclear weapons. The whole city was glued to the broadcast, with everyone wishing they could witness it firsthand. This is the infamous disappeared couple case that shocked the nation and is still talked about today. Let's go back to October 23, 2012. That day was their wedding day. The husband was hardworking and diligent, and the wife was stunningly beautiful. After getting married, they ran a barbecue stall at the night market. However, due to recent strict crackdowns by the authorities, they temporarily moved from the city back to the countryside. After living like this for a year, on this day, the mother, as usual, described how the couple worked tirelessly from dawn to dusk every day. They couldn't even have breakfast together, so the mother prepared the meal early, waiting for her son and daughter-in-law to come eat. But no matter how long she waited, they still hadn't shown up. When she tried calling, she only got a message saying their phones were turned off. Instantly, a bad feeling welled up in the mother's heart. This was the first time both her son and daughter-in-law had their phones off at the same time. To dispel her worries, she quickly got up and went to her son's house to check. When she arrived at the door, she noticed not only was the outer gate unlocked, but the door to the main room inside was also left ajar. Pushing open the couple's bedroom door, she found the bed neatly made, which stood in stark contrast to the mess in the living room. Still, there were no clues to be found in her son's home. The old lady started to panic. Just as she was about to leave, the scene before her eyes instantly scared her so much that she collapsed to the ground. Their family dog had been brutally killed, its head smashed in with a stone by someone. A strong sense of dread surged through her, and without a second thought, she immediately called the police. Soon, the Fixian County Public Security Bureau received the report and rushed to the scene. From their perspective, as soon as they entered the gate, they could see the dog that had been cruelly killed among the plants. The police then discovered that there were surveillance cameras installed both inside and outside the house, but the power cables to the cameras had been cut. Moreover, following the path of the cables, the computer that was responsible for recording the surveillance footage was also missing. There were obvious signs of damage on the security bars of the living room window, and the opening was just big enough for an adult to fit through. According to the elderly woman, her son's house had been burglarized just a couple of days earlier, and the security bars hadn't been repaired yet. Now the people themselves had simply disappeared. After a brief inspection, the police, like the victim's mother, realized that something serious had likely happened to the family. They then proceeded from the yard into the living room. On the coffee table were several unfinished dishes, beer, soft drinks, and a broken mop handle lying on the floor. Just looking at the food, things made even less sense. The elderly woman told the police that her son never ate meat, and her daughter-in-law only ate pork. So first of all, the braised pork dish on the table didn't add up. If it was for guests, and they were hosting, she had never seen anyone serve guests by bringing the whole pot to the table, spatula and all. The police then proceeded into their bedroom. Though the bed appeared undisturbed on the surface, there was a local custom. If there was a quilt on top, there would definitely be a bedsheet and pillows underneath, followed by a mattress pad. But now it was just the quilt with the mattress pad and bedsheet missing. What was even more chilling was that on the back of the pillow, there was a palm-sized bloodstain. The police immediately began a more meticulous on-site investigation, bringing in professional equipment to scan the scene again. Not only were multiple bloodstains detected inside the storage areas, but the bloodstains on the floor had also been mopped up by someone. There were clear signs that the wardrobe and closet had been rummaged through. In the north bedroom, clothes were scattered all over the floor, and the most conspicuous item was a torn piece of women's underwear. At this point, upon returning to the courtyard, it was noted that the family's courtyard wall was only 2 meters high, meaning that any adult could easily climb over it and enter the house. Sure enough, the police found several muddy footprints on the wall. Thus, it could be concluded that something unfortunate had likely happened to the couple. However, the extent of the incident could not yet be determined, so the investigation had to continue. But to investigate the case, one must try to think from the perpetrator's perspective. Let's make a bold guess. If the perpetrator had killed the couple and then cleaned up the scene, what happened to the things that were cleaned up? Just as this was being discussed, another team of officers made a breakthrough. In a river near the crime scene, they retrieved 3 plastic bags filled with items, which were then laid out in a row. First, there was some household trash, beer bottles, mineral water bottles, and empty snack wrappers. Next, there was a rural credit cooperative bank card and a pair of jeans. Inside the pocket of the jeans, there was another bank card with the cardholder's signature on the back. Soon, the couple's marriage certificate was also found among this pile of trash. As more and more clues were discovered, everyone began to have a bad feeling. Sure enough, after a series of searches, the police found a cave not far away. It was highly suspicious. The cave entrance was about 3 meters high, but from below you could clearly see that there was some straw laid out inside. Actually, having straw there wasn't unusual, but if the straw was freshly placed, that would be a different story. Moreover, bloodstains were found at the entrance of the cave. Sure enough, after searching inside, a pair of feet, one large and one small, were discovered. Upon identification, the two were confirmed to be the newlywed couple, with it established that they had been murdered. Finding the killer would naturally reveal the truth of the matter. The police did not overlook any clues. Do you remember the 2 bank cards that were fished out of the river earlier? One of them It was precisely the victim's card that, on the night of May 13th, was used 6 times in total to withdraw 11,000 yuan from an ATM. The person making the withdrawals was a man wearing a woman's jacket. What's even more unimaginable is that every time this suspect got the cash in his hands, a wild, arrogant smile would appear at the corner of his mouth. Unfortunately, the police were only able to obtain surveillance footage of the suspect withdrawing money and had no information about his movements after he left. So now, it was crucial to find out whose card the second one was. After investigation, this card turned out to be a subsistence allowance card issued to families in difficult circumstances. The cardholder, Fu Daxing, was already over 60 years old at the time and had been bedridden for a long period. If he were the one who attacked the couple, he probably wouldn't have even made it to the scene before being sent to the hospital due to the bumpy journey. Clearly, he was not the perpetrator. Upon further investigation, it was found that this card received a monthly subsidy of about 55 yuan. Whenever the balance exceeded 100 yuan, Huo Daxing's son, Huo Gang, would withdraw the money. He used the money for his daily expenses at places like gambling dens and similar establishments. In other words, the actual user of the card was Huo Gang. With no legitimate job and idling about all day, it didn't take long for a social relations investigation on Huo Gang to identify 4 suspects: Huo Gang, Zhang Shuijun, Wang Jiying, and Zhao Feng. Judging from the photos, you can probably already guess what fate befell each of them. Once the suspects were identified, their entire movements were tracked, and soon they were found on a long-distance bus heading to their next hideout. The group was apprehended, and the scene was quite a spectacle, drawing crowds of townspeople to watch. Now let me briefly recount the entire course of the crime. First, a disclaimer. Most of this account comes from online sources, so please approach it with rational discernment. Do you remember the elderly lady mentioning that the broken window at her son's house was caused by a burglary just a few days earlier, and that they hadn't had a chance to fix it before the people disappeared? That burglary was committed by these individuals. Although they didn't manage to steal any money the first time, the house stood out in the village, with its luxurious interior decoration, and especially the wedding photo of the young couple, which left a deep impression on the 4 of them. In the days that followed, the group continued to loiter around all day. Because they had no money, even getting food became a problem, which tempted them to commit another crime. But this time, they didn't just plan a simple burglary, they directly plotted a robbery. They thought this would be more straightforward. With this idea in mind, their first target was naturally the same house they had visited a few days earlier, the one with the beautiful wife. So, on the afternoon of May 14th, the group climbed over the wall into the courtyard. Since they had already cut the surveillance cameras during their first visit, this time they easily entered through the security window and hid inside the house, waiting until after 7 p.m. The young couple returned home. Fu Gang and the other 3 quickly subdued them. In order to save his life, the husband gave them the pin to his bank card. After that, Zhao Feng put on the wife's clothes as a disguise and went to withdraw an unexpected 1,000 yuan. On his way back, he even bought beer and cigarettes. After getting the money, the group had no intention of stopping. They began to take turns raping the victim. Not only that, during this period, they even threatened the husband, ordering him to cook braised pork for them, and told him that as long as they behaved and did as they were told, their lives would be spared. Helpless, the husband listened to his wife's cries coming from the bedroom. In order to stay alive, he had no choice but to comply. And so the group sat in the living room eating the braised pork the husband had cooked, watching TV, drinking beer, and taking turns assaulting the wife for 8 hours straight. By the time the wife was on the verge of death and barely conscious, the husband finally realized that things might not be so simple. He pleaded with them, begging, "Please just leave. We won't call the police. If you really have to kill someone, then kill me, but please do it quietly when you do." He was afraid his wife wouldn't be able to bear hearing it. He was timid, and she was already 3 months pregnant. But his pleas did not bring even a hint of remorse from them. Instead, at around 3 in the morning, the 4 decided to go all the way. First, they killed the husband with an iron chain, and then Fu Gang stabbed him in the right lung. Only when he stopped moving did they stop. After that, they brutally murdered the wife as well. But it was the forensic report that truly made people hate these 4 murderers to the core. The victim's left chest had been bitten to shreds by the 4, and a broken toothpick was still stuck in the right chest. The lower body was swollen, and there were even 18 nail holes. As for the bank card that played a crucial role in solving the case, how was it discovered? After the crime, once they had finished cleaning up the scene, Fu Gang noticed that the victim's pants were better than his own, so he decided to wear the victim's pants when he left, casually